Hello, everybody.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good to meet you.
And can you guys hear me? Okay. The lay was in the way. We're here today to talk about gamification, and in case you don't remember, we have the live sift system, and if you'd like to ask a question during this, I'll be holding the live sift system and see what you were looking at. It's livesift.com, and the passcode is PTC'14. Great. So as noted, I'm Maribel Lopez. I'm an industry analyst. I run a market research and strategy consulting firm called Lopez Research. We focus predominantly on mobility, but also the intersection of mobile, big data, and cloud computing. A lot of our clients are fascinated by gamification and how they can use it in their business, both internally to make it more successful, but also to drive engagement with their client base. And I'm going to allow Steve Sims to introduce himself from Badgeville.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Quick question, read of the room. How many people are in telco and cable infrastructure, that kind of stuff? Raise your hand. How many people are in sales? How many people are in mobile? What else do you guys do? Data centers. Okay. Did I miss one? We'll figure it out. I'm actually a game guy. So I come from electronic arts. So I worked on John Madden football and a bunch of other things there. What's happened really is there's been kind of a change in the world. And the change has to do with how people interact with technology. And gamification is one of those things that's come out of it. And so that's why we're here to talk. Right?
And for those in the room, I mean, gamification is a term that, while some of the concepts have been around for a long time, maybe the term is new to you. So could you define what you mean by gamification?
Sure. Gamification is the application of techniques and psychology used from and learned from video games. Video games have been around for a while now, applied to real-world scenarios and situations.
So tell us a little bit about how gamification came about and how it's different from some of the things we might have heard of before, like leaderboards in sales or things of that nature.
Sure.
Are they different?
Yeah, sure. Fundamentally, people are motivated by a bunch of different things. People are motivated by feeling smart. They're motivated by feeling like they're making progress and they're successful. They're motivated by feeling socially valued. How do I compare to other people, and how does the group feel about me, the company, the team I'm in, what have you? And finally, people are motivated by structure. And what happens is all of these things you see in the world that you think aren't necessarily aspects of gamification actually are. Who used airline miles to come out here? Anybody? Anybody use airline or get airline miles on your flights, right? That's gamification. It's a kind of a poor man's version in loyalty, but it's a version. Does anybody have one of these? You know what this is? Fitbit? Okay, that's gamification too. If you think about the whole quantified self movement and how I measure myself and I got to get those 500 more steps to meet my goal, that's gamification too.
So, as I said, in some ways this isn't a new term, but it sounds like we've got at least 4 different motivational paradigms that we're looking at. And from the perspective of those 4 motivational paradigms, we have a cross-section of people in the room, obviously. How do you think this applies to telecom and to service provider industry in general?
Sure. So telco, there's actually a lot of use cases that are possible, and actually we've deployed a couple. The first is you can do support center. So if you think about people who go in to complain about their phone or they want to ask questions, if you can answer that on the website versus having them talk to a live person, you're saving money for the telco. And that's actually, we have a deployment up at Kudu Mobile, which is TELUS up in Canada with that. Other things are call centers. If you think about those people, how are they motivated? Whether you realize it or not, in contact centers, they're actually gamified already, although it may be very, very crude. They'll have leaderboards, who's the employee of the week or the call center person of the month. Those things can all be automated such that people are incentivized to perform better but have a happier experience at work.
We have a lot of questions coming in from the audience.
I got a couple more. I didn't think about telco. Telco, there's also things like sales management and other things. A quick shout out, we have a partnership with whoever is familiar with Oracle, and we do a lot of stuff that has overlap with telco. And everything from billing and revenue management, to sales and CRM. So if you're an Oracle house or an Oracle shop, you can contact your people, and our stuff is actually built into some of their stuff.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the hardest question on this because I think everybody has this question in some way, shape, or form, and that's how do you measure ROI for gamification? And I think this is critical for anything you do, but gamification is one that people have been interested in.
Yeah, I think for ROI, there's a bunch of ways you can measure this. Fundamentally, I'll divide it down into two things. You're either making money or you're saving money. In the case of some of our deployments out in the consumer world, it's conversions to shopping cart, it's moving people down that acquisition funnel, things like that. In the case of the support thing that I mentioned earlier, it's about how many calls they deflect, because they know how much it costs per call, and if they can reduce that, then that's a clear ROI victory of cost savings. For sales performance, that's obviously what are the increases in numbers. There is one other aspect of ROI sometimes they talk about, which is actually engagement, which is how many activities do people engage with. And it turns out that in a lot of your ecosystems of how your customers, your consumers, your employees work, there's kind of a long tail distribution. How many activities, how many times a week they come in, how often they come in, what's that lifetime value? And so driving that up is also a measure of a way you can translate to ROI.
Yep, and I thought this one was kind of funny, but it actually is quite pertinent, is using a system like LiveSift gamifying the audience.
It's interesting. I'm new to LiveSift now. I think that if we were to reward and crowdsource the answers, if you guys all had phones and you could vote on whose question is the best or which answer was the best if we were in a panel, that may be a way of gamifying it. As it is now, the aspects that may be thought of as gamification have to do with like social proof. Does everybody know what social proof is? Okay, it's her birthday over there. Let's all clap. Can we all clap for a second? Anybody? Come on. All right. Whoever clapped, you're a victim of social proof. It's because you have no idea why you're clapping. I mean, I told you it was her birthday. It's not her birthday. But the point is, when somebody in a meeting starts clapping, yay, Joe did something or Sal did something, we all start clapping. Social proof is the norm that everybody goes to feel like they're fitting along. So to that case, LiveSift, if it were broadcast and showing what everybody else was doing, so you asked a question because everybody else was asking a question, that would be an aspect of a type of mechanic you would see in gamification or behavior management.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that you're getting to something that I think is a real critical element of gamification, and that is, what is engagement? And is it enough to just, say, okay, I've asked it. So what LiveSift is trying to do is drive an element of engagement. And then I think gamification is trying to elicit a certain set of behaviors around that.
Yeah, I think
Would that be how you characterize it?
Yeah, I think gamification in some ways is an accelerator. So if you think about it, you can reward, in the typical, everybody play Mario? Everybody know Mario? You do stuff, or how about Candy Crush? I'm a Candy Crush addict. Anybody else? No? Nobody? No Candy Crush? But, you do these things, and then points lead to level, points lead to stuff, and actions lead to points lead to levels. There's a different kind of thing, those are called game mechanics, but there are types of mechanics like social mechanics, which are these things like on Facebook, find and follow,
right,
or activity streams for content discovery. And whether you realize it or not, all of those kind of techniques are digital techniques that are psychologically moving you based on these different principles.
Yeah, or LinkedIn, you're
LinkedIn.
90% complete in your profile.
Absolutely. So we talked about those 4 things that motivate you in terms of structure and progress. That's exactly what the LinkedIn progress bar is. If anybody ever looks at the game I always play on LinkedIn is I'm always looking at who looked at me. and I hate this thing where it says anonymous, and then someone else looked at me. And the reason for that is that's actually another psychological mechanic. The itch they're trying to scratch is who's looking at me, and I may be missing out on a business opportunity or a social opportunity, what have you, if I don't go look at it. Right. They're also using it as a way to try to upsell you to LinkedIn Premium. It's a pretty effective thing.
Yeah, it is actually.
But that's another example of these kind of techniques.
Okay, the display.
There we go. This is awesome. Great questions.
So what types of mobile technologies can be employed to gaming my workspace? Or just maybe how can mobile be employed to gaming my workspace?
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. So I've seen everything from, leaderboards with combines of tablets plus mobile plus leaderboards for things that are going on. I've seen things where people are using to check where everybody else is, to upvote, downvote. It's kind of unlimited. In this new world where everything is going all connected all the time, if you think from our research, we see 3 kind of big trends. One is the trend of personalization, where everything has to be, it's about making everything about me for everyone. I like that.
I like
the
that.
second is always connected and always on. And I can't even remember the third one at this point, so I maybe call it jet lag. But the point is that mobile is a key point, and it's a key touch point. I've seen it on the floor of retailers. I've seen it on tablet in live events. I've seen it in the office and every day. It's why all of the major providers of things that we work with have mobile apps. And
I love this. I don't even know if you need a moderator if you just have somebody that can feed questions like this, but this is great.
No.
Can gamification do anything for carriers who are losing engagement with subscribers to over-the-top services?
I'm sorry for being completely naive. Over the top, Joe, help me. What is over the top?
Services like Google that are sitting on top.
Oh, like Skype and stuff? Yeah, so the interesting thing is, that's actually kind of what we're doing in some ways with Oracle. Understanding your user, churn has to do with stickiness, the stopping of churn. So what ends up happening is, I'm going to talk a little junior psychology 101 for anybody, I hope that's okay. Basically what happens is to create a habit, people have to interact frequently with something. The more frequently you interact, the better chance you have of creating a habit. If you can't do that, or at the beginning before there is a habit, you have to show utility. What is the value of what I'm doing and why would I want to do this? Yeah. And so what ends up happening is the people in those over-the-top services, they've already created habits, so it's hard to pull people out of that. So it's basically the carriers have to figure out what are the patterns of usage and what are the things that will create stickiness to leave. Even things like, this is old, but Yahoo Mail. Gmail's kind of killed Yahoo in a lot of ways, right? Mm-hmm. But I still have my Yahoo homepage because it's configured exactly the way I like it. And so they've managed to create stickiness. One model, it's not my model, but one model that I've seen, basically your trigger leads to an action, which leads to a variable reward or some kind of emotional payoff and an investment. And if you put investment into whatever service you're having, you have a chance, it's Nir Eyal who did this, by the way, you have a chance of keeping that habit loop going. So the thing is, for the OTT answer, the carriers, it's about providing value and creating sticky solutions. T-Mobile did this a long, long time ago with Friends and Family. Do you remember Friends and Family? The 5-person at the time, based on billing structures and stuff. The Friends and Family created a stickiness that people weren't able to get out of. It was pretty effective while it was running.
This one's interesting. Can gamifying be taken too far?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the most important thing, if you guys want to do this for your own enterprises, B2B, by the way, we do B2B as well as B2C. There's some interesting use cases. Is you have to be transparent with who you're working with. You have to understand the culture. I think I wrote something about this on my blog, but you have to understand the laws and legalities of where you are. How a call center in the Philippines works is completely different than how a call center in India would work, or in Eastern Europe. So rewarding the right way, being transparent. The other thing is, I wouldn't say it's necessarily taken too far. What I would say is misapplied. When gamification goes bad, it's usually because the paradigm and the design and the product isn't really understood, and what you're throwing at it isn't the right solution. I'll give you an example. Everybody know Biggest Loser? Biggest Loser, everybody familiar with that? Weight loss show? Okay. When you're at the beginning of that show, having me get on the scale against you is a really bad idea. I'm very sensitive, I'm very heavy, I'm heavy now, and I'm sensitive about it. But as the show progresses, and they do better, and that's why their team competitions work really well at the beginning, blue team, gray team. As they get further down and they've lost enough weight, they're so proud of themselves, they're running through the poster of themselves, they're running through the holograms, and that's when it's okay. So again, most of the time it's about context and application than taking too far.
This leads me to maybe a clarification point about gamification. So one of the things that I think might be an issue, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, is people might set up a gamification strategy, but then what? Is it something that constantly has to evolve?
Yeah, so our view on this is gamification is like a garden. And if you have a garden, you have to tend it and you have to care. And so the reason gamification is here is because of the rise of analytics and data and social, like in Facebook and Zynga and things like that. We try something, we look how the crowd reacts, and then we iterate constantly. Any of these programs need to be iterated constantly because your people change, they come in and out, they get more mature. And so to understand what's going on in your community, this is another tool or a touch point to help you effectively engage with your users, be they customers or employees, what have you.
How can games be applied to designing team projects or accomplishing critical tasks?
So gamification is slightly different. So the one thing we didn't talk about is the span, and I can talk to you afterwards because I'm probably running out of time, but you have games over here, then you have serious games, which are simulations, and then gamification is really about taking those things and applying the methodologies to help people do more things effectively. Isolating the critical tasks, social collaboration, rewarding good ideas in a social setting are all ways that you could get more efficiency in critical tasks. We've seen it used also in like project management, project estimation. I mean, a bunch of things, QA, a bunch of things that you would never think that it would be used for, it is.
Can I just get a time check? Because I have 2 different times. Okay, thank you. So we have time for one more question, and I think I'll ask that question.
Sure.
If you're thinking about designing a gamification strategy, I know that everybody's different, but is there a certain place that somebody should start? Or at least what are the 3 aspects of a gamification strategy they should be thinking about?
Well, there's a bunch of primers out there you can read. A lot of people have books. I should probably write one myself. But I think there's the things I'd probably take into things is make sure you understand your users before you implement anything. User journeys are important. People are human. They're predictable in weird ways, but they're predictable. The other thing is I'd figure out what my touch points are. Where am I deploying this and kind of what is my long-term strategy? You're telling a story to your employees or to your customers, what have you, of personal or professional growth. And put yourself in their shoes. How do I see myself over those terms? And from there, you'll be able to extract from that narrative, narrative plus touch points plus these different things and use cases and objectives will kind of lead you to the right design and the right application, which you can measure and tune over time.
So is there maybe a difference in strategy if you're doing short-term gamification versus longer-term gamification?
Yeah, actually, the problem with some short gamification also is that you always get a spike from novelty. Novelty will always give you a spike even if it's poorly designed. So the key is to actually program it on a number of different levels. I'll leave you with this one. Everybody knows, this is satellite out here, but everybody knows Showtime, HBO, all that kind of thing, whatever your equivalents are. Okay, when Homeland is done, what's your next show? If you don't have another show, they're going to leave. That's why, there's Game of Thrones, or there's Nurse Jackie, and then there's Dexter, and then there's Homeland. There's show after show after show. Our most successful deployments are with people who understand that. So for instance, do you guys know MTV? We power MTV in Canada. They're constantly running programming, figuring out, okay, this month it's tickets to the VMAs. Right. Next time it's a sponsorship run for Gossip Girl, or it's Justin Bieber gives you a tweet out or something, a shout out or something like that. And so understanding your audience, how they interact, the cadence, and programming this thing, like a gardener tending his garden is the way to go.
Wonderful. Steve, thank you so much for your time. Oh. Let's round of applause for Steve.
Round of applause for you.
And I think we leave you to lunch now. Thank you.
Thanks.